Just a preface before this video begins. This video not only has spoilers for the show GTO, but also contains a trigger warning. I try to censor myself as much as I can, but because of the anime itself, I do talk about some sensitive topics, so if it is not for you, I'd recommend just clicking off the video now. If it is for you, awesome, and we'll get into the video in just a moment. Do you recognize this man? How about now? Or now? Well, chances are you probably do. His name is Hiroshi Uchiyamada, and he is the vice principal of Holy Forest Academy. Not only is he an antagonist in the anime GTO, he is also the subject of this meme, arguably one of the most popular anime memes of all time. Honestly, after seeing his face on my phone for years, I was still shocked to watch this scene in the show for the first time, as I did not put the pieces together beforehand. Now, I might just be a bit of an airhead, but when I started the show, I had no idea he was this meme. So, I decided to introduce anyone not familiar with GTO or anime in general to a brief background into one of the most iconic anime meme formats of all time. This is Aikichi Onizuka. He is 22 years old and the main character of the show GTO, also known as Great Teacher Onizuka. Quite the coincidence, am I right? To say he is morally ambiguous is a severe understatement, as he plays into the outdated 90s anime trope of finding creepiness funny. This borderline predator wants to become the greatest teacher in Japan, with one of the initial reasons being to hang out with his female students. Of course, his reasons go beyond physical, but given the fact that he has no real qualifications or training outside of a couple-month-long student-teacher program, it's safe to assume his methods are unconventional at best. It's crazy to me that the show is rated the same as Nichijou, because the topics on these shows are wildly different, and it definitely seems like it was rated so very wrong. Aside from being insanely creepy, as well as having no qualifications, Aikichi Onizuka is also a former gang member, making the implications of him becoming a teacher even worse than they already were. No joke, within his first year as a teacher, Onizuka committed a laundry list of crimes, including but not limited to waterboarding, several accounts of both assault and battery, and breaking and entering, as well as photography without consent. The insane thing is, many of these crimes are committed against his students, and sometimes even his colleagues, but he still somehow comes out unscathed every time, even gaining respect from everyone involved. You might be asking how this man continued teaching for so long, and honestly, it's because of the plot. To preface, almost everyone in the show ranges from needing therapy to needing life in prison, because no one in that show is completely normal. In fact, in episode 5, 3 of Aikichi's female students went ahead and beat up another one of his students, a boy named Noboru Yoshikawa. They beat him up so badly he bruised, and even went as far as to embarrass him and attempted to blackmail him, leading him to attempt to remove himself from the world. He was saved by Aikichi, and after learning what they did to Yoshikawa, he tracked the girls down and gave them some of their own medicine. Although he meant well and got his point across, what Aikichi failed to realize is that his students are minors, and he is not only an adult, but a teacher. While what they did was horrendous, that does not necessarily give him permission to essentially do the same thing back to them. This leads to a whole fiasco between the PTA and the school, as one of the children involved in Mr. Onizuka's punishment just so happened to be the president's daughter. And guess who was supporting his firing? Good old Hiroshi Uchiyamada. Because of his iffy background, when he went to apply to Holy Forest Academy, a school with particularly lax teacher standards, the person interviewing him, Vice Principal Uchiyamada, essentially laughed in his face and sent him on his way, and honestly, rightfully so. Although Uchiyamada was no saint, he wasn't nearly on the same level as Aikichi, and was right to initially reject his job application. The only reason why Onizuka got the job was because the chairwoman, Ryoku Sakurai, went around Uchiyamada and offered him a position, after seeing how Aikichi handled an altercation between the vice principal and some students, aka Aikichi suplexed Uchiyamada into the ground to prove a point. After getting hired, Aikichi was put in charge of the worst class in the school, known for torturing teachers so much they resigned. Throughout the show, Aikichi's job was to get through to these students using his questionable, often illegal methods, while they and Uchiyamada tried to get him fired. Honestly, If I were in Uchiyamada's shoes, I would completely understand, as Aikichi was not a normal teacher and often put the lives of his students at risk. Because of the success of his unorthodox ways, however, he gained the respect of his students and even some of his colleagues, much to the dismay of the vice principal. Leading up to the scene that would become the meme, there was a running joke that Aikichi would accidentally destroy Mr. Uchiyamada's new Toyota Cresta that he bought to desperately fix his midlife crisis and his home life. After totaling the VP's car twice, it would only make sense that Hiroshi would want to avoid Aikichi at all costs. Uchiyamada fully believes his life is coming together, until he makes the revelation that if he brings the car to the school anywhere close to Aikichi, it will most likely be destroyed again. His facial reaction alone would make him an internet sensation nearly 15 years later, according to Know Your Meme. Unfortunately, however, Uchiyamada would not even get to safely park his vehicle before it was destroyed again, crashing it into a pole at the first sight of Onizuka. On a side note though, it was really strange why they used CGI specifically in this scene to animate the car driving. Not only was it not super relevant to the story, it was never used again, making this the one time CGI was used, just for a minute-long driving scene to show off the new car. I'm not exactly sure why the production team thought this was a better use of their money than just animate the car driving by hand, but I'm assuming it might have been easier that way, but I'm no professional. The very next episode, after once again getting his Cresta fixed, the man gets jumped by Onizuka students because they want to see what he's trying to do now, and they use Miss Fuyutsuki, Onizuka's love interest and another teacher, to drive them to see what's going on. Unfortunately, Miss Fuyutsuki doesn't have her license, and as you can imagine, the car gets doo-dooed on yet again. Not only does Onizuka cause absolute chaos at the school Hiroshi had worked at for 29 years, but he now is the sole reason why his car was destroyed 4 times in a row, making it perfectly justifiable to hold a grudge against him. Another huge event that took place between the two comes a couple episodes later, when Onizuka shows up out of the blue to Uchiyamada's house to give him papers, only to be invited in by his wife, undermining his newest attempt to fix his relationship with both her and their daughter, Yoshiko Uchiyamada. Knowing Aikichi's fondness towards younger students, or maybe a mix of projection and hatred, you can imagine the utter shock and horror Hiroshi experiences when his wife recommends that Onizuka tutors Yoshiko. Since he doesn't wear the pants in his relationship and also doesn't have enough dirt on Aikichi to say no, he very reluctantly agrees, leading to some rash decisions to be made afterward. During that same conversation, it is revealed that Aikichi has a few connections in the entertainment industry, and Yoshiko just so happens to want to go to some concerts, which is important for later on. Eventually, another teacher sees Onizuka and Yoshiko together in the city, which leads Uchiyamada to obviously assume the worst. Desperate to get more evidence, Uchiyamada tracks the pair down, getting into every predicament possible. From getting chased by the police in a gorilla costume, to wandering the city while naked, it isn't until he comes face to face with Onizuka when he finally learns what was going on. Onizuka truly just took Yoshiko to see a concert, with no weird undertones whatsoever, resulting in Uchiyamada realizing for the first time that Onizuka might not be all bad. Eventually going back to hating Aikichi's very existence, it's destined to not last long as we head into the final section of the anime. After blowing the grade's camp trip money on very questionable services, Aikichi must make it up to the students before getting fired. Uchiyamada almost gets him this time, right before Onizuka very confidently says that instead of going camping, the grade is going to Okinawa for a several-day-long trip. Not only did Onizuka not have the original trip money to back this up, he also had to make nearly 8 times that amount to actually plan the trip, and was only given a week to make up the money for obvious reasons. Coming up with the money could only be described as dumb luck. Onizuka had my man Uchiyamada stressing, trying to convince Mrs. Sakurai to just fire Onizuka. During the actual vacation, Onizuka stresses this man out so badly, he essentially has a mental breakdown, ending up in the hospital. This was indirectly one of the best things to happen to the vice principal, as not only does he get the chance to actually relax while recovering, one of his former students comes by to visit him. This one interaction changes everything for Uchiyamada, as he finally remembers why he even became a teacher in the first place: to help children. At one point, his overarching goal was the same as Onizuka's: despite having a very different method for achieving it. He doesn't remember when he lost his way and became a condescending dickhead, but he finally realized what exactly Mrs. Sakurai saw in Onizuka the entire time, coming to the school's aid when it mattered, defending Onizuka, Mrs. Sakurai, and his students in the face of the Board of Education. This was very hectic to say the least, and I just figured I should make this video for anyone interested in the character and anime where the meme originated. Despite some of the weird undertones, GTO is actually pretty good. I don't know if I'd ever watch it again anytime soon, but I'd recommend it to people into 90s anime. Overall, the anime did have some memorable moments, and at some points was pretty funny, so if you're interested in watching this, as chaotic as it is, at the time of rating this, it is on Crunchyroll and Netflix, so check it out there. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like, and if you want to see more of the videos in the same style, please subscribe. I do have a couple more videos like this planned out, so please be ready.